Welcome, and thank you for joining The Logic of It All with your host, Reverend Gary Essex Sprunger.
Hello. Thank you for following, and glad you could sit in on the conversation. This December 14th is the third Sunday of Advent, and over the past 3 episodes we've been following the lectionary's suggested scriptures as we look forward to the birth of Jesus. The scriptures have covered some of the Old Testament prophecies that are used in the New Testament, supposedly telling about the coming of Jesus. The word supposedly is used because, as we have been reading, the prophecies have been about the Lord coming to restore his kingdom. This is in the Old Testament. And in the New Testament, they are used as confirmation that they were prophecies about the coming of Jesus. The problem has been the prophecies in the Old Testament were written during times of Jewish suffering. They had been defeated, overrun by their neighboring enemies, killed, taken hostage, and they were praying that they were righteous enough for God to restore them into his favor and would send them a king, his king, that would defeat their enemies and bring judgment on the wicked and justice for his people. In the past, they had believed God had instructed a prophet to anoint a man as king, but there still were defeats and captivities. The prophecies later were about God not going through a prophet, but being directly involved by sending the one that would be a successful king, meaning restoring God's kingdom for his people, and all would be good for his people in their righteousness. With their ancient knowledge of myths, legends, superstitions, and belief in mythological gods, they were able to reason that only through God's direct action could there be a king that would establish God's kingdom for his people, as the others, anointed by their religious prophets and believed approved by God, were not successful. And only God sending them a leader directly would be the king that would end their desperation, and then all would be good for his people. There are 2 suggested Old Testament scriptures. First, Psalm 146, verses 5 through 8. Blessed is he whose help is in the God of Jacob, whose hope is in the Lord his God, the maker of heaven and earth, the sea and everything in them, the Lord who remains faithful forever. He upholds the cause of the oppressed and gives food to the hungry. The Lord sets prisoners free. The Lord gives sight to the blind. The Lord lifts up those who are bowed down. The Lord loves the righteous. And then again in Isaiah chapter 35. The desert and the parched land will be glad. The wilderness will rejoice and blossom like the crocus. It will burst into bloom. It will rejoice greatly and shout for joy. The glory of Lebanon will be given to it, the splendor of Carmel and Sharon. They will see the glory of the Lord, the splendor of our God. Strengthen the feeble hands, steady the knees that give way. Say to those with fearful hearts, be strong, do not fear. Your God will come. He will come with vengeance, with divine retribution. He will come to save you. Then will the eyes of the blind be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then will the lame leap like a deer, and the mute tongue shout for joy. Water will gush forth in the wilderness, and streams in the desert. The burning sand will become a pool, the thirsty ground bubbling springs. In the haunts where the jackals once lay, grass and reeds and papyrus will grow, and a highway will be there, and will be called the way of holiness. The unclean will not journey on it. It will be for those who walk in that way. Wicked fools will not go about on it. No lion will be there, nor will any ferocious beast get up on it. They will not be found there. But only the redeemed will walk there, and the ransomed of the Lord will return. They will return and enter Zion with singing. Everlasting joy will crown their heads. Gladness and joy will overtake them, and sorrow and sighing will flee away. In both these prophecies, the coming of the Lord is to establish his kingdom, who will not only defeat the enemies, but cast judgment on the wicked. There also will be relief from the ills attacking the body. In the psalm, God will provide food for the hungry, sight for the blind. And in Isaiah, those with feeble hands and knees will be strengthened, the eyes of the blind open, the ears of the deaf unstopped, and the lame will leap like a deer, and the mute tongue will shout for joy. Life will be good in many ways for the Lord's people, who will be freed from oppression, their freedom restored. They will not be hungry, and they will be restored to good health. Now we turn to see what is done with these prophecies in the New Testament lesson suggested in the lectionary, which goes into the adult life of Jesus to confirm what has been prophesied. Matthew chapter 11, verses 2 through 11. When John heard in prison what Jesus was doing, he sent his disciples to ask him, "Are you the one who is to come, or should we expect someone else?" Jesus replied, "Go back and report to John what you hear and see. The blind receive sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cured, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is preached to the poor. Blessed is the man who does not fall away on account of me." And John's disciples were leaving. Jesus began to speak to the crowd about John. "What did you go out in the desert to see? A reed swaying by the wind? If not, what did you go out to see? A man dressed in fine clothes? No, those who wear fine clothes are in kings' palaces. Then what did you go to see? A prophet? Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is the one about whom it is written, 'I will send my messenger ahead of you, who will prepare your way before you.' I tell you the truth, among those born of women there is not risen anyone greater than John the Baptist, yet he who is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he." From one of these of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven has been forcefully advancing, and forceful men lay hold of it. For all the prophets in the law prophesied until John. And if you are willing to accept it, he is the Elijah who was to come. He who has ears, let him hear. Matthew was believed by most scholars written some 80 to 90 years after the death of Jesus, but a few believe it was 40 to 50 years after his death. Needless to say, this was written some decades after the death of Jesus, and the prophecies were verified by the storytellers in what they told about Jesus healing the blind, the lame, the deaf, and the leprosy was cured, and the dead raised. And when we have read those signs in the four Gospels accounts, miracles were done with just the word by Jesus, or touch, even touching his robe. We were told his healing was done by driving out evil spirits. To the ancients, any illness was brought on by God's punishment for sinful living, or the person was infected by evil spirits. That is far from being logical today. And the storytellers went a step further than the Gospel's descriptive stories of Jesus' healing, here in the storyteller's account in Matthew, giving them confirmation coming from Jesus himself. In the Old Testament, the stories by the storytellers are told and written long after events that are remembered as folklore, like flooding and earthquakes, plagues, and all used to give credence to the believability of truth, to what they were saying, the point they were trying to make. And that mostly was to explain their misfortunes were caused by their sinfulness, which brought God's wrath upon them. In the New Testament, storytellers' literary accomplishments were told and written years after the time represented in their stories. And in this writing in Matthew, the storytellers were in a time when the church was having internal conflicts, while at the same time there was a movement to tell everyone that Jesus was the Son of God, the Messiah that came to satisfy the ransom for all our sins. They used during the oral tradition and then in their writings, Jesus himself telling what things he was doing. They used this to convince people he was the anointed one, sent by God. There was less emphasis on judgment and more on what he did. Healing to show he was the long-awaited one who had been prayed for over a long, long time. They just had to be patient for his return. And in these times, for many, there is a turning to God because of events that keep repeating and repeating. All the killing. Yesterday at Brown University, 2 are dead, 9 injured, 1 remaining in critical but stable condition. No motive yet from the surviving shooter. And then in Sydney, Australia, after a Hanukkah event, 12 dead, 29 wounded in this anti-Jewish attack. 2 shooters in custody. Jihadists continue to persecute Christians and Jews around the world with no regard for human life, which, as we have discussed, is sacred. Not from scriptures of any religion is life sacred, because all the major religions of the world were written when knowledge consisted of myths, legends, superstitions, and belief in mythological gods. According to scientific reasoning, the human life is the pinnacle of creation in our known universe, and is the only living tissue that can even contemplate a creator. Nothing else. Nothing can do that. And in the Judeo-Christian faiths, that sacred human has a soul, and no one from parent to politician, relative to religion, dictator to demented, no one can hinder in any way, physically or psychologically, cannot hinder that sacred life from reaching their creator-given potential. If the sacredness of human life was truly realized, and all our lives were lived with the goal to make it possible for all sacred lives to reach their creator-given potential, there would be no killings like what happened Saturday. There would be no war between Russia and Ukraine, no wars in the Mideast between Arab and Jew, no massacres of Christians and Jews happening now. An ancient thinker would see all this happening today and say, only God coming to earth can stop all this evil. And when we look at another scripture recommended for the Sunday of Advent, you can see another prophecy written some 45, 50 years after Jesus' death, in James 5, 7 through 10. Be patient then, brothers, until the Lord's coming. See how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, and how patient he is for the autumn and spring rains. You too be patient and stand firm, because the Lord's coming is near. Don't grumble against each other, brothers, or you will be judged. The judge is standing at the door. Brothers, as an example of patience in the face of suffering, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. This is a New Testament prophecy calling for the return of Jesus. It'll probably be preached today, it probably was, by evangelists that Jesus has to come back again to make the world right again, which makes little logical sense when all prophecies were written by storytellers and none have become reality. It seems all prophecies are merely prayerful, wishful thinking using ancient knowledge. What is logical is that in God's wisdom, the change to current conditions will come from the pinnacle of creation, which has the ability and capability to bring about such change, an end to all killing of humans' sacred lives. And that pinnacle of creation is the human, you and I. We are pinnacles of creation, as are all humans around the world. You've heard it before. No matter skin color, ethnicity, race, religion, nationality, intelligence, we are all created children of God, who has given us abilities we haven't even used, not even reached in understanding. We need to concentrate on knowing us more, ourselves. And one vital step in that direction is not only a Christian reformation, but a reformation of all religions in the world, all written before the age of reasoning in the 16th century, all written in knowledge that is myths, legends, superstitions, and belief in mythological gods. It's no wonder such terrible things every day are happening, done by humans against humans. And the real underlying tragedy is the Creator has given us the ability to find our own ways out of these terrible, horrible conditions of killing one another. We can't wait for the Reformation to begin, but we can, in each of our little worlds, make each day better than yesterday. And it can be done. The man who risked his life to overpower the killer at the Hanukkah celebration in Sydney was a Muslim. He was wounded in the arm and shoulder by a second shooter after he disarmed the first. He's recovering and expected to recover from his surgeries. There are good people in all faiths. Until next time, when things will be better than they are today, have a good rest of your day and sunshine tomorrow.
Thank you for following The Logic of It All and the Hope for a Christian Reformation. If you have followed since episode 1, you're welcome to the website, thelogicofitall.com. Join us again for much, much more in The Logic of It All.